The only reason Yuki was in Q3 was because during Q2, where everyone else was running the medium tyre, the slower tyre, Yuki was running the soft, so managed to get a better advantage, using those softer tyres to get through to Q3, which was primarily to give Gasly the tow down the main straight. Now, if you're familiar with the Mexican Grand Prix circuit, it has one of the longest straights on the calendar. Forgive me, I don't know how long it is, but it is one of the longest straights. I think it's almost as long as Baku's main straight with the kink at the very end of Baku. And so much time can be gained there by being in the slipstream. And, we're talking about a couple of attempts. And when we're thinking about qualifying, a couple of attempts goes a long way, especially with how close the midfield is this year. So Yuki doing the team a solid by qualifying on the softs in Q2 and getting through to Q3. So Yuki helped Gasly get the slipstream down the main straight and then followed him. So then Gasly overtook him going into turn 1, which is executed perfectly if you've watched the onboard, which I've searched for to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So for the rest of the sectors, Yuki was just following Gasly through sector 1, 2, and 3 because this wasn't his main qualifying run. He was in a box and come out again on fresh or just go for a second run once Gasly has done his. Yuki's engineer came onto the radio and let him know that Perez was on a fast lap about 4 seconds behind him. And then 4 seconds behind Perez, there was Max also on a fast lap. So the Red Bulls were behind them doing their final qualifying runs. And it's important to remember that this is happening with a minute left in the session. So both of these drivers have gone late. It's the last chance to get these times. It's all or nothing. Turned out to be nothing. So Yuki, with the instruction of his engineer, was asked to move out the way. Now, maybe that might mean moving to the other side of the track or moving off the racing line. But because we're going through these S sectors, which are very similar to the USA, Maggots and Beckett's in Britain, Yuki decided to go off the racing track, the opposite side to the racing line. So completely out of the way of any cars coming behind him. So Perez turned up and saw that Yuki was off the track and seemed to slightly lose control of his car. He had a snap and it all kind of went wrong for Perez. Now, whether this was Perez overdriving the car or just whether it was just a driver mistake and which caused him to have that snap or make him lose a little bit of control, we don't know. But Perez also went off the track on the left-hand side with Yuki as well, narrowly avoiding Yuki, if I don't say so myself. Like it was quite close, within a meter or two. And obviously then Max came through, saw 2 cars off the track, and it's unclear whether Max slowed down because he saw 2 cars off the track potentially rejoining where he wanted to drive, or whether there was a yellow flag because there was 2 cars off the track. We don't know. But Max's lap was also was ruined. There was a distraction, nevertheless. This is what's really important to remember. It's without a doubt, Yuki did exactly what he was asked to do. He came off the track and made sure that he didn't get in the way of those 2 Red Bull cars. I don't know whether Perez made a mistake or whether he was distracted. It's just one of those things. And then Max also got distracted and came off the accelerator and had a slightly slower lap than he wanted. But it was just the outcome. It was just the response to this incident, which didn't really sit well with me. Now, Alex, what do you think about the incident itself? And then we'll talk about the Christian Horner Red Bull PR aftermath kind of disaster, which you so love because it's happened in Silverstone and now it's happened again.
I seem to recall that Tsunoda, who I'm trying to remember, Tsunoda, when he left the track, maybe kicked up some dust. That may have distracted Perez or whatever, but certainly it seemed that, Tsunoda did what he was asked to do, gave the tow, and then moved as far out. Like, where else could he have go to get more out of the way? Like, he literally left the track, so he did what he was asked to. And then, the follow-up from that seemed to be that it was Yuki's fault. Christian Horner described it as we've been Tsunoda'd. And although that is quite a vague thing to say, it's easy enough to interpret that as him saying that it's Tsunoda's fault, which seems pretty unfair for the poor rookie driver who's had a tough enough season as it is. I mean, there's no excusing the poor performances that he has put in throughout most of the season so far, but blame him for what he has done wrong rather than, just piling on for the sake of it. And it just seemed a little unceremonious, and it doesn't really shine a particularly positive light on Red Bull, and that's the way that they treat their drivers. It didn't seem like we need to look at it, we need to make sure what's happened. It was just straight up throwing him under the bus a little bit. But Tsunoda seemed to be positive nonetheless, after the race, it seems like he's been working on his mentality towards his racing. So he didn't seem particularly phased by it overall, which was good to see. There was a video of him packing up after the race because obviously he DNF'd very early on. He seemed to be in reasonable spirits, and hopefully it doesn't go too hard on him. But just a little bit, much like it was the British Grand Prix that you mentioned. Is just the response to it is just bad PR, if nothing else.
Yeah,
it's not a good look for the team. I don't really know quite why that was such a knee-jerk reaction for poor Yuki there, but that's the way it goes sometimes, especially when you're driving for a team that is clearly a subordinate team to the big
not
one.
a sister team.
They like to say that they're still up there, and Pierre Gasly was certainly proving that at the Grand Prix on Sunday. But clearly there is a certain master and subordinate relationship going on there.
It's such a shame that he went out of his way to help his team play the team game to get Gasly into P5, I think he qualified, which is great for the AlphaTauri. And Gasly had a fantastic weekend. That reminds me, I don't have my driver of the day prep. This is going to be interesting later on in the podcast. But Gasly had a great weekend because of the position he got into in qualifying. And that was helped by his teammate. And that seems to be forgotten. And you've got one half of this is social media in a whole. You've got one half of the social media saying that he's done this incredibly dangerous, wrong thing and he's jeopardized 3 people's laps. And you've got the other half going, well, actually, he's just done what he's been told. And I'm in that camp. He was just done what he's told. And I don't think he could have executed it any better. If he had stayed on track, it would have been even worse. He would have been slandered even more. But the guy can't seem to catch a break at the moment. And he's had a bad season. There's no doubt about it. But he was playing the team game, and he's been heavily criticised about it, and it's just not very nice.